Attention all anatomy aficionados. This is the anatomy of the bladder. The bladder is a hollow organ in humans and other vertebrates that stores urine from the kidneys before disposal by urination. In humans, the bladder is a distensible organ that sits on the pelvic floor. Urine enters the bladder via the ureters and exits via the urethra. The typical adult human bladder will hold between 300 and 500 milliliters before the urge to empty occurs, but can hold considerably more. In humans, the bladder is a hollow muscular organ situated at the base of the pelvis. In gross anatomy, the bladder can be divided into a broad fundus or base, a body, an apex, and a neck. The apex, also called the vertex, is directed forward toward the upper part of the pubic symphysis. And from there the median umbilical ligament continues upward on the back of the anterior abdominal wall to the umbilicus. The peritoneum is carried by it from the apex onto the abdominal wall to form the middle umbilical fold. The neck of the bladder is the area at the base of the trigone that surrounds the internal urethral orifice that leads to the urethra. In males, the neck of the urinary bladder is next to the prostate gland. The bladder has 3 openings. The 2 ureters enter the bladder at uretic orifices, and the urethra enters at the trigone of the bladder. These uretic openings have mucosal flaps in front of them that act as valves in preventing the backflow of urine into the ureters, known as vesicoureteral reflux. Between the 2 uretic openings is a raised area of tissue called the interuretic crest. This makes the upper boundary of the trigone. The trigone is an area of smooth muscle that forms the floor of the bladder above the urethra. It is an area of smooth tissue for the easy flow of urine into and from this part of the bladder, in contrast to the irregular surface formed by the rugae. The walls of the bladder have a series of ridges, thick mucosal folds known as rugae that allow for the expansion of the bladder. The detrusor muscle is the muscular layer of the wall made of smooth muscle fibers arranged in spiral, longitudinal, and circular bundles. The detrusor muscle is able to change its length. It can also contract for a long time whilst voiding, and it stays relaxed whilst the bladder is filling. The wall of the urinary bladder is normally 3 to 5 mm thick. When well distended, the wall is normally less than 3 mm. Urine, excreted by the kidneys, collects in the bladder because of drainage from 2 ureters, before disposal by urination or micturition. Urine leaves the bladder via the urethra, a single muscular tube ending in an opening called the urinary meatus, where it exits the body. Urination involves coordinated muscle changes involving a reflex based in the spine, with higher inputs from the brain. During urination, the detrusor muscle contracts, and the external urinary sphincter and muscles of the perineum relax, allowing urine to pass through the urethra and out of the body. The urge to pass urine stems from stretch receptors that activate when between 300 to 400 milliliters urine is held within the bladder. As urine accumulates, the rugae flatten and the wall of the bladder thins as it stretches, allowing the bladder to store larger amounts of urine without a significant rise in internal pressure. Urination is controlled by the pontine micturition center in the brainstem. When viewed under a microscope, the bladder can be seen to have an inner lining, called epithelium, 3 layers of muscle fibers, and an outer adventitia. The inner wall of the bladder is called urothelium, a type of transitional epithelium formed by 3 to 6 layers of cells. The cells may become more cuboidal or flatter depending on whether the bladder is empty or full. Additionally, these are lined with a mucous membrane consisting of a surface glycocalyx that protects the cells beneath it from urine. The epithelium lies on a thin basement membrane, and a lamina propria. The mucosal lining also offers a urothelial barrier against the passing of infections. These layers are surrounded by 3 layers of muscle fibers arranged as an inner layer of fibers orientated longitudinally, a middle layer of circular fibers, and an outermost layer of longitudinal fibers. These form the detrusor muscle, which can be seen with the naked eye. The outside of the bladder is protected by a serous membrane called adventitia. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. Please comment and subscribe for more anatomy. Goodbye.